Hey, hi guys. Welcome to Theo Prayogshala. So, guys, in today's session, we'll learn Maven build life cycle. So, in the previous session, we had seen the introduction to page object model, that is, project object model, that is POM in Maven. And in today's episode, we'll see the Maven build life cycle. So if you see Maven, right? So Maven basically is a build automation tool. It is a very simple build automation tool wherein you can build your project and you can package it in terms of a jar file or WAR file as per your project's requirement, and then you can share it with the other team members, right? Or let's say with the other projects or something, or to your client in the form of an jar file. Okay. So in the Maven, we have a very simple build life cycle. So that we are going to study today. Okay. So let's get started. It's very simple. Let's see what we have here. Okay. So if you see Maven, it is built around the very central concept of a very simple concept of building any project. Okay, so here we have a very simple life cycle. Okay, so in the project development, if we say we have a development life cycle, if we are testing something, then we have a software test life cycle, and in the similar way, here in this case we are building something, so here we have the build life cycle. Okay, so one thing is very simple is here, very simple commands are provided by Maven, okay, through which we can easily build our project. Okay, so we need to learn very few commands in order to build any Maven project. Okay, so those commands we'll learn in the next episode. But for now, let's understand the life cycle of Maven. So in Maven, if you see, basically we have three built-in build life cycles. Okay. So in Maven, we have three built-in build life cycles. So what are those? So basically, three life cycles are, first one is the default life cycle. Okay. So this life cycle basically it handles the project deployment activities. Okay. So whenever we want to deploy our project, okay. So in that case, we will use the default life cycle. Second life cycle is the clean life cycle. Okay, so let's say we want to start a new project. Okay, we want to build a new project. Okay, so in the software development world, you might be aware that we continuously keep on adding new functionalities. Okay, so in that case, as and when we start adding the new functionalities, we will need a new build, right? We need to build a project as soon as we make some changes in the existing source code, right? So in that case, the existing target folder files, right? So previous build won't be reusable, right? We cannot reuse the previous build. So in that case, we need to clean the previous build, or else, in other words, if we say we need to delete the target folder. So the clean life cycle basically it what it will do is it will basically delete the target folder. Okay. So this life cycle it basically handles the project cleaning. So these all things it will be clearer, okay, in the next episode when we go through some of the Maven commands. Okay. So in that way, in that case, we'll see one there is one Maven command called as mvn space clean. So what this command basically will do is it will delete the target folder. Okay. So in the next episode we'll see that part in the more detail. So clean life cycle, for now you can understand that it is used to basically clean the previous build. Okay, to remove the previous build files. So that is the purpose of clean life cycle. And finally, there is a third life cycle, and that is the site. Okay. So, in the Java, right, if you have used Java, probably, then in Java we have the Java documentation part. Okay, so what that is for? Sorry. So Java documentation part basically, right? There are various different methods which are available in Java. So for each and every method, we won't know what is its functionality. Okay, so Java documentation will help in the way that it will basically give us a fair bit of an idea that what a particular method is doing. Okay, so in the similar way, in the Maven, we have this site. There is one command called as mvn space site. So basically what it will do is it will prepare the documentation of your project based on the information it has. Okay, so that is the purpose of the site. Okay, so this is the third life cycle, that is site. What it will do is it will basically automatically it will create some documentation for your Maven project. Okay, so that is the purpose of the site life cycle. Okay, now this life cycle, it may seem different to you. Okay, it may seem that these are quite different. Okay, but if you see, these are very closely related to each other. Okay, it is not that these are separate. Okay, in any way, these are not separate. These are quite closely linked to each other. Okay, and one other thing you need to understand in Maven is Maven, the hierarchy of Maven is something like that. If you let's say if you directly want to run the step 5, then you can definitely run. But how Maven works is, if you directly are going to the step number 5, that is if you are going to the life cycle number 5, right, phase number 5, then in that case it will run the previous 4 phases before that. Automatically it will do that. Okay, so this is how it will work. So let us not confuse ourselves. Let us see what are the different phases of, okay, in the build life cycle. What I meant by my previous sentence. Let us try to understand that. Okay. So there are various phases of the build life cycle. Okay. Based on the uh, what should we say? Based on the purpose of packaging, right? Is there are various different phases here available. These are termed as a build life cycle phases. So let us try to understand this one by one. Okay. So the very first phase here is the validate phase. Okay. So what this will do? So validate phase, first of all, what it will do is this phase is the purpose of this phase is to make sure that all the necessary dependencies, okay, are available for the project. So let's say if we see from the testing world, we have a Selenium project, right? And in the Selenium project, we have various dependencies we need to download, right? We need the Selenium jar, okay? Then in other words, we'll also need the test ng jar, for example. Okay, for example, if we are interacting with the Excel files, then in that case, we'll need the Apache POI jar files also. Okay, so these are all the dependencies. Okay, these are all the project dependencies that we will need before we can actually run that project. Okay, so the validate phase, the main purpose of this phase is to make sure that all the necessary dependencies are available beforehand. Okay, and none of the dependencies are missing basically. So that is the purpose of the validate phase. Okay, second phase is the compile phase. Now let's say all the dependencies are available. Okay, we made sure that it is available. Okay, so validate phase is a success. Now the next part is we need to compile our code, right? Before we can run the code, we need to compile our code. Okay, so in the compile phase, what will happen is this phase it will compile the source code of the project. Okay, so in Maven we know, right? In Maven, if you see, we have two different parts. One is the source code and one is the test code, right? So and in my previous video, okay, if you see, we have seen this thing. So if you see the hierarchy, right? If we see the hierarchy, then we have two different parts. One is the source code and one is the test code, right? We have src main, right? And we have src test also folder. Okay. So in the compile phase, what will happen is basically it will compile the source code. Okay, it will compile all these files. Okay, and basically it will convert this .java file into .class file in this phase. Okay, it will compile our code. Okay, and basically it will uh, generate .class file out of .java file. It will basically move those files. Okay, it will move those files to the target folder. So that is the whole purpose of the compile phase. Okay, we'll see this part in more detail, okay, in the next episode when we'll go through the Maven commands. Okay, so the compile phase, it will basically compile the source code of the project. This is very important. Okay, it won't compile the test code, it will compile the source code of the project. Okay, it will convert .java file to .class file and will copy all this .class file to the target folder. So this is the compile phase. Okay, so now next phase comes is the test phase. So basically, right, we compiled our source code, right? It is compiling successfully. It is working correctly. Okay, it compiled successfully. It didn't give any kind of an error messages, syntax error or something like that. Okay, it compiled successfully. Now the next part is if we are if you guys have worked in the page object model, right? So in the page object model, we what we have is uh, we divide the module into the set of pages, right? Like P1, P2, and so on. So let's say there is a CRM application in that there are certain pages like contact page, supplier page, and so on. Okay. And for respective modules, we'll have the test pages also. Okay. So in this test classes, what we'll do is we'll be testing this source code, right? That whether it is working correctly or not. And this process of testing this page by page, it is the unit testing, right? Can we term it as unit testing, right? Yeah, so we can term it as a unit testing. Okay, so we need to make sure that each unit is working correctly. Okay, so here Maven is providing this facility inbuilt that in this test phase we can test our units one by one. Okay, to make sure that it is working correctly. Okay, and here the good part is we need not to package it. Okay, or we need not to deploy it because we are still testing it in on our local system. So this is the test phase. Okay, now next come is the package phase. Now we made sure that each unit individually that is working correctly. Okay, so now we can next phase is the package phase. So in the package phase, what will happen is Maven will take the compiled code, and it will package it in the distributable format, like jar or for, as per our configuration in the pom.xml file, right? So package phase, what it will do is it will basically package our code, compiled code, most importantly, okay, in the distributable format, right? That could be either jar or for, okay. That depends on our configuration again, okay, as per our configuration in the pom.xml file. So this is the next phase, that is the package phase. Okay, okay, so this is the package phase. Now next come is the verify phase. Okay, so we did the unit test, right? But we need to make sure that the interaction between all these units is working correctly, right? So if we see here, right? If we see here, we made sure that each individual unit is correctly working, right? Now next, what we need to make sure is that interaction between all this module is also correct. Okay, so let's say there is one page one, right? If I click on some link, then it will open page three, right? Then that part should also work correctly. Let's say for an example, there is login page. You enter username and password, correct username and password, importantly, and you click on the login button, then it should open the home page. So this is the interaction testing, right? Unit testing was I will test that I will enter username password. I click on that and that should If it is correct, then I should land on home page. If it is not correct, then it should give some validation message. So that is a unit test. But integration test means I need to make sure that interaction between all the unit is correct. Okay. So that is the verify phase wherein we do the integration testing to make sure that each and every unit is able to interact with the other unit successfully. So this is the verify phase. Okay. Now finally we did unit test, we did the integration test, we packaged it. Now what we'll do is we'll install that package on our local repository. Okay, first of all, to make sure that system wise it is working correctly, we'll run the system test to make sure that as a system it is working correctly. So next phase is the install phase. Okay, wherein what we'll do is we'll install this packaged char into our local repository as a dependency. Okay, so that is the install phase. And final phase is the deploy phase. So here what we'll do is we'll basically deploy a package to the remote repository, right? To the QA system, basically to the QA environment, okay? To share it with them to test it. Okay, so this is the deploy phase. Okay. Now, here if you see, right, as I told you before, let's say I want to run the deploy phase directly. Okay, so here there is a one very good system in the Maven that what it will do basically is even if you directly want to run the deploy phase, okay, by typing in mvn space deploy command, then what it will do is it will also run the previous phases. Okay, like it will run validate, compile, test, package, verify, and install prior to deploy. Okay, so that Maven makes sure that none of the prior phases are failing. Okay, so that is a very good thing of the Maven. I hope guys that this life cycle was clearer to you. Okay, and in the next episode we'll see all the different commands that we frequently use, okay, for the Maven and the testing world. So I hope you enjoyed this video, you learned something. Okay, so that's it for today's video guys. See you in the next video.